Morning, guys. Thought I'd show you a couple things on worm bins. I'm just making a new worm bin right now, and ended up popping a hole in this thing. See that big hole down there? So it's actually pretty perfect for a worm bin because you can set these up, have them drain down, and collect all the leachate out of there, and make worm tea out of them. So just a couple things again that I had laying around, and so we're just gonna tear it up and make a worm bin. So this one is an old worm bin, another one that I've got going, and there's the there's a bunch of holes in the top. It's important to make sure that your worms can breathe, and because otherwise they'll be trying to crawl up and get out of there. So if you don't have proper ventilation, you're for sure going to be dealing with that. So what I did is I took this 55-gallon drum, drilled holes all the way around it, and then the one thing that you want to do here, I've just got a few things. I'm going to try to blast through it. Just a bunch of rocks. So I'm going to put some rocks down there. You can use whatever you need to. I mean, I've seen guys use smaller drums, shallower drums. There's there's videos on YouTube about bathtubs, all kinds of stuff. Bathtubs are rad because they, have that kind of natural slope, and that makes a huge surface area. So there's a lot of different stuff that you can use, but just thought I'd throw this in here. So part of the reason why I put this in here is to just give it some support. The other thing too is to give some drainage. So just put those in there. This was a piece of, I don't even know what, some kind of screen, something or other, but I just kind of bent the corners a bit, and so I'm gonna slide this down in there, and that just creates a barrier for the so that the worms don't get down into those rocks. And so and then there's a couple of things that you can do. You can, of course, layer this entire thing with coco coir, or you can do a little bit of a mix. Some of this stuff that I'm going to do, I'm going to use a little bit of peat and cocoa. So I've got a bunch of peat here. I'm going to go ahead and just make a big layer here of this stuff. So bear with me while I kind of jump through this. So I put a bunch of peat, and then get some cocoa going here in just a sec. It really doesn't matter too much what you want to do. You just want to give these guys a solid bed to kind of go into and obviously chew up. So there's everything about this stuff is all layering, just as compost is, or if you're growing other things, excuse me. If you're growing other things, I like to create a lot of layers because it gives a good bed. So again, here's some cocoa, just kind of mixing all that stuff in there. So let me just make this big layer here. So we've got a pretty solid layer. I'm going to put a little bit more peat in. And get that going. So I like to have a few inches of this stuff and just make a big bed for them. So trying to grab as many of these big chunks as I can so I can move a little bit faster here. So So that's got a, good, probably 4 or 5 inches in there. Again, it's all going to be relative to what size of bin you're using. You don't want to go super deep. These red wigglers, they don't drive down. They actually like to kind of stay up towards the top. So the one thing that I've got over here in this other bin is all the worms, and I'll try to bring some of this stuff over. So you can see in here, I mean, there's a bunch of microgreen waste. There's there's these little worms in there. We grow mushrooms, and so some of these aborts and kind of crazy looking ones, we put that in there. I mean, these guys go through quite a bit of food, and so you need to be looking at what exactly how many you have, and make sure that you're feeding them appropriately. That's usually what happens with most people. Like, you can see these big old chunks of mushrooms. That's the one thing, is they really love protein from the mushrooms, and they kind of explode out. So you can see I've got a lot of this different stuff in there. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we dumped yesterday from a harvest, and so there's everything from microgreens and mushrooms. You can put just about everything in here. Coffee grounds, eggshells. The only thing you don't want to really put is citrus. They don't like to break that down. So that's really the only thing. You definitely don't want to be putting. I mean, it depends on where you're having this stuff. I mean, everybody pretty much recommends not putting meat products, dairy, things like that, because they'll stink, and then you're attracting all kinds of God knows what. So anyway, so we're putting this in here. We've got some layers going. I'm gonna I'll keep putting this stuff in, but before I cut this off, I at least want to kind of move a few things around. Hopefully, show you a little bit better what's going on. So I'll move this bin. I just use these buckets here just to set this up. I'll put it up on some cinder blocks and put it in. But what you're seeing here is a way for this to drain out, and you can collect your leachate from there. And again, that's how you make your compost, or your worm teas. So if you buy worms, you can get them super cheap. They're basically like $1,000 per pound. You can get them like we bought ours from Jim's, and they're great. I mean, they're pretty active, and if you just keep up on how much food you're putting in to them, I mean, we've got at least a couple thousand, I think 3,000 in about this bin, and so that's, you got to make sure again that you're feeding them well. So once you get your soil down, the one thing that maybe I'll just hurry up and do this here. So you put all your soil and your worms. If you're just starting out, this is the layer where you'd actually just go ahead and put the worms down, and then you can start adding in some of this other stuff. Great thing here is, man, you should see all the worms in here. So there's a ton of them. They're all kind of hiding out and going nuts right now because I'm messing with their house. So, but so I've got got a pretty good layer. But the one important thing to do here is to then take you essentially have a brown layer, right? Brown layer. It could be leaves. Could be, I mean, this is newspaper. Put that stuff on here. It creates another kind of a layer for like smells, and lets them break this stuff down. They'll totally break all this down. And so put all that stuff in there. Let me just go ahead and kind of spread that out, and then I don't have my hose. So you then just moisten this up, and then you can cover this. And again, we just put lids over the top of it, but it works pretty well. And again, you'll get all this great stuff, worm castings, and all the leachate for the teas. So anyway, if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.